everybody. This is Alan with Meet the Thriller Author, and I'm really excited today. I have Lisa Regan. She's a USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestselling author of the Detective Josie Quinn series, as well as several other crime fiction titles. The latest book in the Josie Quinn series, Her Deadly Touch, was published on August 12th. I just finished it a couple of days ago. Very excellent, very creepy. Welcome to the podcast, Lisa.
Thank you. It's a thrill to be here. I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate that as well. So can you give us a little bit about you have such a fascinating background. Can you give us a little bit about your background, your story of getting that first book published?
Well, I had always written books since I was 11 years old. And but my dad was kind of like, you don't want to be a starving artist if you can help it. So, like get another job and then write on the side and try to make that happen. And so I was always writing. I got a degree in English, a degree in education, and then I took a veer off in a different direction and ended up being a paralegal. And all this time I was writing, and I finally finished something that I thought other people might want to read. And that was Finding Claire Fletcher, which I finished in 2006. It took me 4 years and 154 rejections to get a literary agent. And then we were on submissions to publishers for 2 years. And then I got picked up by a small press that pretty much as soon as they put the book out, they closed. And so then I was indie for a while, and I got picked up by Thomas and Mercer. And that went pretty well, but I wasn't like breaking any records. So I was just kind of hanging out there, deciding what to do. And I loved the books that Book Auteur was putting out. I really loved their authors. And I thought, wow, it would be, really a dream to work with them. And so I pitched them a couple of books, and they didn't like them. But the editor, who is still my editor now, said, why don't you send me every other idea that you have, and maybe we can come up with something that we both love. And so I came up with a proposal for what is now the first Josie Quinn book, Vanishing Girls, which was originally called Found Alive. And then they changed the title before publication. And so I pitched her the idea, and she loved it. And she said, if you can write that book and come up with the proposal for maybe 2 more books, and we'll talk. And I didn't want that opportunity to get away from me. So I wrote Vanishing Girls in 3 months.
Wow.
And they had been sold to Hachette by the time I finished it. And I thought, oh no, what if she's not there anymore? What if she's forgotten about me? But no, I emailed her, and she remembered me. She wanted to read the book. And then we went back and forth, over the contract details and the book details. And then they offered me a 3-book contract. And I thought for sure that those first 3 books were going to tank. And then I would be back out in the world really soon, looking for another publisher. And much to my surprise and delight, the series took off by book 3. And so now I'm a couple contracts later, and I'm contracted for a total of 20 books.
Oh, Josie Quinn books? Oh,
yes.
That's awesome. And over 2 million sales, right? So far.
Yes. Over 2 million copies sold across the series so far. And that was before book 12 came out.
Wow, that's just so awesome. So like a perseverance. I keeping at it. Yeah, because it's tough. I'm going through a query right now, and when those rejections start coming in, it's
so hard.
Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, before you started to write these books, like thrillers, were you a fan of the genre? Is that why you chose to write in that genre, or?
I was, and actually, I started reading more romantic suspense, like Tammy Hogue and Lisa Jackson, and then I moved kind of into the Karen Slaughter, Gillian Flynn, Lisa Gardner, moved a little bit away from the romance as one of the main focuses. And I love the genre so much. I'll read anything, but I just love the mystery thriller genre so much. That's almost all I read because I just love it. It's so good.
Yeah, those are great. And I have noticed too, the last couple of years, I find myself with like you said, Thomas and Mercer and Bokacher put out like the best thrillers the last
Oh,
couple of
they do.
years.
Yeah,
uh,
they really
uh,
do.
so for people who aren't familiar with your books, can you tell us a little bit about what can they expect when they're reading one of your novels?
Um, I with the Josie Quinn series, it's a lot of police procedural. Josie is a detective in a small city, a small fictional city, I should say, in central Pennsylvania, which is I live in Pennsylvania, mostly lived in Philadelphia, but I worked and lived and traveled all over central Pennsylvania. So it's been a lot of fun to set the books there. And Josie starts out as this kind of really brash and angry rogue detective on her force. And then with each case in each book, she, grows a little bit as a person, as an investigator, and becomes a little less angry, a little less brash. And, she's trying to very hard to follow the rules. But with my books, I try to throw everything that I possibly can at her. So, all the cases that she has to solve are really complex with really strange clues that don't seem to go together. And you may very often find her, like hanging off a cliff or just running after a suspect and tackling him, that sort of thing. So I'm not afraid to put her into physical situations either.
And so can you tell us a little bit about the latest one? It's Her Deadly Touch. Can you tell us how that came together for you, what it's about?
Yeah, actually, my editor came up with kind of a loose premise for it, which was like, what if we had a support group and the members of the support group were being murdered one by one? And so as we talked through it, died in a tragic school bus accident. And one by one, they start being picked off. And Josie's job is to figure out who the killer is and why the killer is, doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and how do you come? So you say you wrote the first one in 3 months. Do you outline these? I'm kind of curious about your writing, your process to get these out.
I have to outline them because just because the production schedule is so fast.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't outline them, I'm like a psychotic mess. So yeah, I spend a lot of time. I actually spend a lot of time outlining and thinking about it and making notes and writing what I call the crimes backstory. So the first thing I do is I sit down and I say, okay, Josie found a body. So how did that body get there? Who did it? What were the circumstances? What maybe did they leave behind? And so I write for myself, the crime, who was there, how it took place, what the motive was, all of this history, and I'll spend weeks on that. And once I've got that, then I outline the actual book. And then I will write the book pretty fast, because by the time I'm done all that, the book is pretty fully fleshed out for me. It's just a matter of writing the actual scenes.
And what do you used to write your books? Do you use like Word or something different, or?
Oh yeah, just Microsoft Word.
Oh, okay.
I'm not like, I don't have great executive functions, so I'm not really well organized. It's just literally like I have one document that's like initial outline and notes and backstory and character names and questions. I just all cram it into one Word document, and then I'll use a different one to write the book.
Yeah, because that's a pretty. I noticed that too with in the last few years with publishing. The schedule has gotten really moved up now, because you publish several books a year.
Yes.
So that's how does that all come together? I'm assuming it's a great team behind you, and
yeah, I couldn't not do this myself. And the team at Book Auteur is just absolutely amazing. I mean, they really take care of everything to the point where I'm just writing the book and turning it in. And then I get to interact with my fans on social media, which is great. But I don't have to worry about the covers or the marketing or the, what it says on the back of the book or trying to get reviews. They do all of that for me. So my entire focus is on the book and my readers.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, and yeah, the covers are so amazing. They're so the colors,
Yeah.
and even though it's just like a landscape or something, it still looks like creepy and eerie. They do a
Yeah,
great job.
yeah. And for
Uh,
some reason, people love the creepy house.
yeah.
I was like so excited. I think one for book 6, I got a bridge, and book 7, I had a little John boat, and I was so excited.
So
But
it looks like they're going away from like the shape. It used to always be like a shape of a person. Now it's a shape of a house.
yeah, yeah, it is.
That's so fascinating how all that works. Um, and so I was wondering as well too now, how much research do you put into your books, especially with the police procedural? Do you do a lot of research beforehand?
Yes, as much as possible. And I'm really mad at myself because I had a folder that was 2 inches thick on book 12 of just my research. And I threw it away because I was like, oh, book 12 is out. And now I'm like, oh, I could use some of those notes and articles. And so, yeah, anything that I'm doing, I really try my best to talk to whoever I need to talk to that's going to be familiar with the subject. And I have a really good friend that I went to grade school with, actually, who is a sergeant in a police department in Pennsylvania. And I will message him sometimes in the middle of the night and say, hey, I need Josie to do this. Is this possible? And if it is, how would she go about it? And, he'll take me through the process of what wouldn't be possible, what would be possible. And then other than that, it's just a lot of kind of like cold calling people and saying, hey, I'm writing a book, could you answer my questions? And like sometimes it's really awkward. So like book 13, we have I'm gonna use a dam. And I was looking for a dam expert, which is really hard to find for some reason. And then my stepdad, who's an engineer, was like, why, I could help you. I've worked on all these hydroelectric dams. And he's like, like, what do you need to know? And I'm like, well, I need to know where I could get a body in there. And he was like, oh. Like,
He was hoping for an engineering question, right?
just this. Yeah. Yeah. Where could I put a body in a dam? Yeah. He's like, I was not expecting that.
Is that something that you like whenever you're driving around? Is your imagination always like thinking about, oh, this would be a good place for a murder? Or
Oh, constantly. Yes. It just never stops. Everything I see is fodder for what could go wrong in a Josie Quinn novel.
Yeah, I think that's been so great too. With seeing the progression, like you were saying in the beginning, like there's been a lot of changes in Josie from the first book. Is that fun for you now? Kind of like you've been watching her like change and grow. I wonder how is that? How does that work for you? How does that feel to see that growth?
I love it because as a reader and a television watcher and a consumer of entertainment, uh, I really find it more gratifying, especially in a series. If I'm watching and I've invested all of this time and energy into something that I'm reading or watching, if the character shows some growth as a human being, this may seem like a really silly example, but ages ago, I was a huge fan of Grey's Anatomy. Until the season of the plane crash, that was too much for me. But until then, I think it was like 8 seasons. I watched that show religiously, was obsessed with it. And one of the things that was so exciting for me was watching the main character, Meredith Grey, grow as different things happened to her and as she moved through life and past traumas and all that stuff. And so I wanted to do that in my own work, that if you're going to read 12 of my books, then I hope that you will be gratified that you stuck around because Josie's going to transform in ways that you didn't expect.
Yeah, I imagine it'd be kind of hard if you're not doing that, because then you probably would lose the reader's interest if it's always the same. I would imagine that's kind of makes it kind of more invested into her and the books and the
Yeah,
series. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Very few, like, I guess Law and Order was one show where it was always just the case to case, and you didn't
Right.
really delve into the people, the characters, but that was one in a million, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was wondering as well too with this crazy year and a half that we've been having with the pandemic, has that any changes into the way you're doing things? Are you planning to address it in future books? What are your plans?
Um, I have not written the pandemic into any of my books, and the reason was because my readers were like, please don't do it.
Mhm.
Um, I had a lot of discussions online with them and over email and on social media. And you know, they were, because my audience is extremely engaged. Um, and they were all like, listen, we have to live with this every single day. When I pick, and they would say to me, when we pick up one of your books, we're looking to get away from from this horrible reality, even if it's just for a few hours. So, they really did not want the pandemic in the books. And I said, that's fine. If that's what the readers want, that's how I feel. I mean, every day of the last year and a half has been, in its own way, kind of a special hell. And watching what's happening to people and watching what's happening to the world and how people are getting sick and dying and suffering and losing their financial security. And so, if as a reader, if you gave me a choice between a book that was going to have that in it
Mhm.
that I'm living, and one where I will be transported to somewhere that doesn't have that, I would pick the non-pandemic book. So and that's my preference. There's nothing wrong with books that, you know, write the pandemic into them. Karen Slaughter just did it with False Witness, and I thought she did it extremely well. And I didn't feel stressed out by it. I thought it was really, really fabulous the way she did it. But for me personally, I just have chosen not to do that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, because next we're reading to escape, and then to, yeah, like you said, it's kind of like a reminder. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've been asking this for like the last 6 7 months to my guests, and I think I should go check what the statistics are, but I think it's like 95% are ignoring it.
Right, right.
Yeah, and so far the only books I read John Sanford's later Ocean Prey, and at the end he mentioned it. Oh, like there's this new thing, because it was at the end of 2019. That was about it. So it's kind of,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, that's the only book that I've read recently that has addressed, even broached it. So yeah, so that's
Yeah.
fascinating stuff. I was wondering too, because so just because I'm nosy, what's like your writing day like? So like, do you like have set hours? Do you set word goal counts?
No, I used to try all that and it doesn't work for me because again, I have a very disorganized mind. Um, and I just want to say this, and I always say this to new writers, which is that, if anybody's listening, because people are always like, oh my God, you write 3 books a year. I can't do that. That doesn't mean anything. You shouldn't be worried about. You shouldn't be comparing yourself to anyone, especially not me, because I'm very disorganized. But I always say that the only right way to write a book is the way that works for you, and everybody's different. And so for me, I try to get in a couple of hours every day where I'm at least sitting at the desk, and if I'm not actively writing, I will be taking notes and working on my outline or working on my backstory. But a lot of the times it's just me weeding in the yard or taking my dog for a walk and turning things over in my mind. And then while I'm supposed to be like at dinner, I'll be frantically typing stuff that I thought of. And then, after dinner, I'm frantically typing stuff that I thought of. And then, like a month before the deadline, nobody sees me. I'm in the book and I can't do anything else. I can't talk. My husband just kind of slides food across my desk and comes back for the plate later. So somebody said in an interview recently, another writer was like, oh, if you wrote a book in a month, I wouldn't read it because it would suck. And I thought to myself, if I had 12 months to write a book, I would think about it and take notes and outline and think about it and think about it and think about it some more and make more notes for 11 months. And then I would write it in the last month. That's just how I operate. That's the way my brain works. So it's not efficient and it's not fun for your loved ones, but
But it's working. It's working.
it
It works
works
for
for
you.
me.
Yeah, like you said, whatever it takes for whoever, for all different writers have different ways of doing things. So that's the important part. And so then I was wondering too, like with as the series progresses too, and now you have there's 20 books gonna be out in Josie Quinn. How do you keep all the stuff in order, all the timeline stuff? Is that challenging? Do you have to go back and check the
Oh,
last book, or?
it's so challenging. And I think around, I want to say book 4, maybe, I was spending so much time looking through the first 3 books, trying to figure out, who I named what and where I put things. And that I found this really lovely woman named Claire Milto who does book Bibles, not book Bibles, series Bibles. And I contacted her and she said, I would love to do it. And she made me a Microsoft Word document. It's like color coded by book. And with every book, I send her, the new book, and she goes through it and she adds all the new stuff to it. So then I have the book Bible open on my desktop the whole time I'm outlining and the whole time I'm writing, so that if there's any question, I can just search by word. Like if I can't remember something about the hospital, I just search, Denton Memorial Hospital, and her entry comes up. And it's the best thing. I couldn't do it without her or without that Bible.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't realize that there's people who do that type of work. That's
Yeah,
that's a great
not many,
idea.
I don't think, but
Yeah, I think you have to have a special mind, like the editor mind, like even
right,
you could be a great writer and everything, but to edit, it takes a whole different
it
brain cells or
does.
something, which is amazing. I could never how they pick things up, and
Oh
this at
yeah,
page 8 you changed the name on page 50, like, oh, you've
yeah.
read it a million times, you still went right
You
over
still
you.
don't see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just nuts. Yeah. And so I was wondering too now, so right now you said you're working on book number 13. Is that
Yes.
and so what when is that one coming out? Can you give us a little teaser on that at all?
That one will come out in December. Um, I have the tentative title, but I don't think I'm allowed to say it yet. And basically, I'll just say this: a series regular disappears, and then a dead body is found, and Josie has to piece together the connection between them both to solve the cases.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah. And so what's then are you already working on the next one then? Are you like usually like ahead of your schedule?
Usually I would be. I'm a little behind this year because my dad passed away in April. So I've been,
Nice.
yeah, it's been really tough. So
Yeah,
I'm
sorry to
just
hear that.
behind. Normally by now I would probably have, a pretty full outline for book 14, but I have a couple of ideas. So as soon as I am, I get this first draft of book 13, you know, tightened up and send it off for, the next several rounds of edits, then I'll like be working on my 14 outline all day.
I was wondering too, as more of these books come out, does the process get a little smoother for you, or is it still like nerve-wracking when a new book comes out?
You would think that it would get smoother, but no. No, because I'm always trying, I always want to get better. So I always want the new book to be better than the last one. And so I'm always like, oh my God, I don't know if this is good enough. And it's very stressful. Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of like what my process is, I know what it is by now. It's never surprising. I'm not as stressed out in terms of that, but I'm always stressed out about trying to bring readers a better book.
Yeah, I can imagine having a deadline too. That would be kind of stressful to have a deadline. Or does that help?
Oh, it's always a thing. Oh my God. And my family, like their favorite sentence is the book is in. Like,
It's like,
okay,
woohoo, celebration time.
yeah. Oh, we can talk to mom again. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was even somebody just last week, and they were saying that they put a sign on their door, like when they're in the need to get that book out, like don't even come in here unless the house is on fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I do have a lot of aspiring writers that listen to this podcast. I always like to ask, and you have such a wonderful story of your success. Any advice for aspiring writers out there that are perhaps struggling to get that first book out there?
Yes. So I have a lot of advice actually for aspiring writers.
Awesome.
My first thing I would say is read, 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 and read. You should do your best to choose a genre. That's not to say that you can't work in other genres, but typically if you put out one book and readers love it, they're going to want more of the same. So, and typically publishers, they're looking for, to grow your audience. So, it's a lot easier if you have a genre. And then once you've chosen it, you should read as much as possible within it. Know what's going on, know what the tropes are, know what the devices are, that sort of thing. And then I would say write as much as you can. Even if you're not working on a manuscript per se, if you're writing notes, if you're writing emails, if you're writing letters to your congresspeople, whatever, if you're getting your thoughts from your brain onto a page, that is excellent. That is practice. That's going to serve you well. And the other thing, I said this before, is the only right way to write a book is what works best for you. So you really need to figure out what your process is. And that's a lot of sometimes trial and error. But don't listen to a writer, like, for example, who says, I get up at 4 a.m. and write for 2 hours before my family wakes up. Like I was never able to do that. I'm not even with coffee, I'm not even functioning by 9 a.m. So not everything is going to apply to you. You need to figure out what works and what doesn't. And then don't feel bad about discarding things that don't work for you. And finally, I would say that this is very, 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 very important, especially if you're not published and you want to be published, is that you cannot be precious about anything that is in your book. You have to be willing to cut, to change, to revise, to edit, and you have to be prepared to be absolutely savage. And so you're going to need a very thick skin, not just for that, but for later when you're getting bad reviews. But you can't be precious about what's in your book. A lot of times as writers, we really fall in love with the characters or the words that we've written or the scenes that we've written. And we feel like, oh, I have such an important story to tell. And I'm sure that we do. But, a lot of times, if you just want to sell a book to a publisher, or if you just want to publish a book that a lot of people are going to read and enjoy, then sometimes you need to make hard choices about what goes into that book and what doesn't. And that means, you may have to cut things that seemed like the greatest thing that you ever wrote, but you just need to do it. You just need to do it.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think it's also it reminds me of writers that I hear that say they don't like to market or sell the book, but I mean, you have to, right? I mean, that's part of the business.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I think as writers, you need to decide, like I write commercial fiction, and that means that my main goal is to entertain. And so there's sometimes I sacrifice, maybe some deep literary themes and meanings in order to bring you a couple of hours where you're going to be absorbed and transported and not think about what's going on in your real life. So as writers, we need to decide, what are we trying to accomplish? Do I just want to entertain someone for a few hours, or am I writing for other reasons? Neither one is wrong. None of the reasons are wrong, but you need to decide what you're doing in terms of getting published.
Yeah, that's great advice. And so where can the listeners find you? Your website is lisaregan.com. Is that probably the best place?
Yeah, if you go to www.lisaregan.com, Lisaregan, you can find everything there. And I like to encourage people to come over to my Facebook page. You don't have to be a fan or even a reader, but I give away a lot of books over there. Not just mine, but pretty much every author that I've ever read that I love, which is a lot of people. I'm always giving away books that I'm excited about. And so it's a great place just to come, maybe win a free book, get turned on to new authors if you like to read.
Awesome. That sounds like a great place. All right, Lisa. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.